Here we go. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jim Hodson, and again with Gary Goff with the Fort Worth Aviation Museum. Yeah, Gary's got the camera. Gary's got the camera today. We're out here at Northwest Regional Airport, 52 Foxtrot. May get a little airplane noise, but that's okay. That's all part of the experience out here. We're going to walk around this Globe Super Swift today and show you a little bit about this airplane. These airplanes are native to Fort Worth. There were about 1,500 of them, plus or minus. The number is still a little bit up in the air, but there were about 1,500 that were built here between about 1945 and about 1951. There are approximately just over 700 that are still registered, and the number of flyers is around 300 airplanes. This is one of the most modified airplanes that probably is out in general aviation use today. So we're going to walk around this a little bit. This airplane started its life as a GC-1A. It's serial number 166, and it was built at Saginaw here in Fort Worth. This airplane spent this airplane spent a good deal of time after it was built. One of the original owners had it down in South America for several years. Wow. The airplane was then brought back into the States, and in about 1963 or so, it lived in California for the purposes of, it was certified as experimental at that point, and it was used for aerial advertising. So this was a skywriter for a number of years in California.
Wow.
One of the subsequent owners got it recertified back to its original certification and then moved the airplane to Louisiana, to New Orleans, where it became the property of the Jackson Brewing Company and became a skywriter in New Orleans, where it spent many of its years, comes out of Louisiana. So the airplane was converted into a GC-1B. The original airplanes had an 85 horsepower engine in it, and then when they upgraded it to a 125, they became the B model. Now I'm going to make a couple of provisos here. One, I am no expert on this airplane. I may own one, and I slept in a Holiday Inn Express last night. But
you did fly it, right?
But I have flown this airplane, but I am no expert on the Swift. So if anybody out there knows more about this than I do, which is a lot, please don't hesitate to chime in.
And I would answer your questions or your comments, but I can't read it. My eyes have gone bad.
Gary can't read them this morning,
sorry.
so we're gonna just do the best we can. A little bit more on this airplane. This airplane is one of about 12 or 13 that were modified by a gentleman named Jack Nagel. Jack was an Olympic skier back in the 50s. He got involved in aviation. He built the first 3 Glass Airs, and then decided he wanted to take on another airplane and work on that. So he started getting involved with the Swifts. His whole attitude or idea was he wanted to make them as fast as possible, because the limitations on the airplane originally were not really airframe limitations, they were just certification limitations on the airplane. Pops Johnson, back in about 1940 or 41, started to design the airplane, and it was going to be a wood and canvas airplane at that point in time. And then a little bit later on, he got involved with John Kennedy, who had the Globe Medicine Company, and then later started up the Globe Swift Corporation up in Saginaw to start to work on these. And then he hired in an engineer named Bud Knox. Bud Knox is the one who kind of transformed the airplane from cloth and wood into an all-metal airplane. The design of the airplane was a little bit taken from P-40s, Spitfires, P-51s. The idea was, as they went through the war, is that when pilots came back after the war, they were going to want something to fly. So initially there were more orders than they could handle when you got into 45 and 46. So Kennedy had an arrangement with Temco here in Texas to start to produce the airplanes. Eventually they ran out of steam with the Globe Swift Corporation. Temco took it over, and so that's where you get to airplanes where some of them are Globe Temco Swifts. This one is considered a Super Swift because of the modifications that Jack Nagel made to these airplanes. This one has about 29 different modifications to it, and Gary, if you'll come closer, we can show him some of these things. That the most apparent thing that you're going to find on this airplane is Jack completely reskinned the airplane and put flush rivets on everything. Now, if you're familiar with Swifts, you'll know the original Swifts had a kind of a corrugated wing. The original Swifts had kind of a corrugated wing. Jack turned that over and also strengthened the wing somewhat, but you'll notice that this is all flush riveting all over the entire surface of the airplane. Is all flush riveting. And if you're also familiar with Swifts, you'll know that there is a slot in the original Swifts here, a leading edge slot. He covered that over, obviously. Some of the other modifications were to the landing gear.
The landing gear, like you said, looks very, very similar to, come back to me. Uh-oh.
Turn right.
There it is. Come on back. Oh, no, we're losing control. Lost control. Oh,
there we are.
There,
Okay.
I got it. Rookie here. Yeah, rookie, serious. The landing gear looks very much like a P-51 Spitfire type thing, so I can see where they get this design concept from there.
Well, and the hydraulics are not really big on this airplane.
So this is not only is it a private airplane, but it's got hydraulics involved with all of this?
Yeah, it's got
gosh.
hydraulics on the gear, and when you watch these airplanes and they take off, the gear comes up, one comes up, and the other comes up, a lot like the Spitfires.
Just like the Spitfires, okay.
The gear doors, the original Swifts did not have gear doors, and so this is a modification. It's called a P50, people refer to it as the P51 gear door.
It looks just like one, yes.
Yeah, and fat tires.
Yep.
Now, the original Swift's nose was only about this long, came
Okay.
up to about here. So, but what this airplane has, this particular airplane has got a Rolls-Royce
Wow.
Continental IO 360. Originally, the engine was a TSIO 360, which was made for a Cessna 337. So it was designed with 220 horsepower. When they put it into this airplane and took the turbo off of it, it's a 210 horsepower Continental IO 360, but it is a Rolls-Royce engine. So we've got a lot of modifications here on the nose and the cowling, and the spinner is a modification. So just so you can get to...
What I like about this is what really makes it very interesting is I am like amazed that the intakes seem to be too small for this engine, but yet it keeps the engine cool.
Yeah, it does. It does a very good job of that. We're just finding out the battery's getting eaten up on here for some reason, so we're gonna quicken this up just a little bit. The leading edge had this strake on here, but Jack modified them just to a small one, and then he modified the wingtips. This is a Bonanza wingtip.
And that's fiberglass.
That's fiberglass. Yeah, that's fiberglass. One of the other notable things that he did was the canopy. He put the bubble canopies on them. Lots of people have put that modification on the airplane. Visibility is just tremendous in the airplane with that.
So we open the canopy?
Yeah, we can do that. Do it real quick. It's got a retractable tail wheel.
Retractable tail wheel. That's crazy. That's just crazy on this thing. That's an interesting cockpit. That's really simple yet profound.
Yeah, and here's the modifications. Some of the modifications in the cockpit here was this airplane had yokes, and so people would do with like this airplane, put dual sticks, and if you can see underneath the dashboard, it has rudders and brakes on both sides.
On both sides, okay.
Yeah.
Just like in our fighter jets.
Yep.
Same thing. Wow. Wow.
But that was actually a decision point for me in buying this, is to be able to train in this with somebody else. You'll notice the anhedral on the tail a little bit. Asking Bud Knox why he did that, what aerodynamic effect he wanted to get out of it. He said nothing really. He just liked the look of it on a B-25. So we've got the rudder, which is a little bit small, people say.
Well, that's to prevent you from flying in crosswinds that you shouldn't be flying
Probably.
with a Taildragger.
Probably. Now
Yeah.
they also did sealed up the flaps on the flap slots in this airplane. There was another mod that was made to the airplane that would allow the gross weight on the airplane to go up to 1,910 pounds. So this particular airplane, we brought it back from Indiana and cruised all day long at 165 knots.
Wow.
and the airplane used up about 9 gallons of gas per hour, and we had it at some points in times up to 185 miles, 185 knots, and the airplane was just stable. The control on this airplane is just light like a fighter. I mean, it's what people refer to as you can do old man aerobatics in it, but
like
very
that.
light on the touch, very stable in the air. It's just really a pleasure to fly. I hate to cut this short, but we were seeing that our battery is getting pretty low on here, and I don't want it to just blink out on us. So we're going to keep this short. We'll do a longer one and more on this airplane as we get along with it. This has gone through some extensive maintenance work.
Yeah, you're getting a whole new
Since we got it back.
whole new instrument panel.
Yeah, at some point in the next several months, we'll put in a whole new instrument panel. But for now, I still need to get 15 hours in the airplane before I can solo it. So we are going to be doing a post-maintenance check flight on it this coming week, and then I'll start my training on this. I've already gotten my tail wheel endorsement from one of the local instructors here.
And why is a tailwind endorsement? Why does it require an endorsement to fly Taildraggers?
Well, it's referred to as a conventional gear, but it's no longer conventional.
It's no longer a tricycle.
And so they operate much different than a tricycle gear airplane does.
Yes.
And so it requires an endorsement of at least 5 hours in the airplane to get an endorsement to be able to solo the airplane. It has, as one person told me, he said, if you want to get an idea of how a tailwheel airplane operates on the ground, grab a shopping cart by one corner and try to push it around on 3 of the wheels, and the way it just will spin around all by itself.
You know, and it amazes me that like B-17s and Lancasters, they're all tailwheel airplanes, and they're massive aircraft.
Yeah.
And they flew around and did this, and everybody was like, oh, this is normal.
Right.
But tricycle's so much easier.
Well, and what I'm told about this airplane is in the landing pattern, you want to fly it like a P-51. You let it land itself, and you let it take off by itself. So,
What was the most challenging part of learning you to get your tail wheel endorsement?
sight picture and not be afraid to pick the tail up. Right. You know, I'm afraid on takeoff that when you pick the tail up, you're going to end up digging the prop in. You know, it's just over 28,000 hours of flight time in tricycle gear airplanes. Picking the tail up at takeoff is something that's very foreign to do.
And because when the tail comes down, that's when you can steer the airplane.
Yes.
With the rudder pedals.
Yes.
Well, you can steer them in the air too, but once that tail wheel comes down, you're committed.
You're committed. Yeah.
You're committed. Wow.
And like people have told me, and that I've learned too, is that you never stop flying these airplanes. You don't stop flying them until they're actually in the chalks. So I don't want this to just blink out on us. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and end this for now. The light out here is hard to see the questions, so we'll get the questions online. We want to thank you for being with us today. Wednesday, we're going to do a tour of the Military Museum of Fort Worth.
Yes.
They've got a new facility that they've just opened up in the Ridgemar Mall. It's really cool. You're going to like this. So we're going to do that on Wednesday, and we'll figure out what we do next Saturday sometime this week. But we do have the Wings Awards coming up next week, and we're going to announce those winners this weekend, and then we're going to do the presentation next week. So that may be our live presentation. We'll see. But for now, from Northwest Regional Airport with Gary Goff and Jim Hodson, we'd like to thank you for being here with us. Stay safe and have fun.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.